we'll be able to answer your questions. We have moderators that would answer your question as much as possible. I'll check the chats so that I can answer any questions that you may have. Then today we are going to be talking about design thinking. That's our topic for today, design thinking. The word, I don't know what might come to your mind when you think of design thinking, design, then adding thinking to it. From our first discussion, we talked about the importance of solving problems and the fact that design is all about solving problems. And here we are talking about how to think in design. So yeah, what is design thinking and how should we think of design? So look at there's this very very beautiful quote I, from um, from Chris Do. Chris Do is a very popular figure in the design space. He's the founder of The Future, one of the leading academies, education platform on YouTube, where you get to learn about design and other forms of design. So this is what he has to say about um, yeah, basically how we should approach how to think in design users. So you know me, appreciate my needs, make my life simple, look out for me, reward me. If you want to build an amazing business or brand, look out for your customers. Know who they are. So of course, you have to know who your customers are. How can you improve their lives? Start by asking questions. This would set up the stage for what we are about to discuss today because design thinking at its core is about creating human-centered design. Our goal, design thinking, is to solve problems, but instead of solving problems through using other forms of maybe using historical data or using our intuition to create solutions or trying to use our intellect to create decision to decide what kind of solution or what shape our solution should take. The design thinking methodology is trying to say that for us to create solutions that are going to work, we should ensure that our solutions are human centered. What does it mean for a design to be human? It for what we do, what design to our design to be human centered. It means that the design we are creating, we should create those solutions with users in mind. Who are the people that are going to be using these solutions? Where are they? Where do they live? What do their lives look like? What challenges do they face? Can we pick them up in the crowd? Do we know what they like? Do we know what those users do not like? Do we know how they live their day-to-day life? Do we know how they interact with the solutions that are out there similar to the ones that we want to provide? These are very important questions that we need to ask when thinking about design or when trying to create solutions in design. We need to understand what we are trying to create and the users that are going to be using that product. It is the very core of design thinking and is the very core of design itself. And as much as possible, we are to ensure that our solutions start from from users and end with users. And we've seen a lot of businesses recently in past 10 years adopt the design thinking methodology just because of how effective and efficient it is at coming up with solutions. And we've even seen situations where we are having more organizations advocating and more bodies advocating for more designers at the forefront of decision making in organization just because of the way we solve problem, the way we solve problem from the design thinking perspective. It's very very powerful, and the solutions can be very can yield business results, of course, because when you create a solution for example, you hire a brand you want to increase sales, for example, in your business, you're trying to increase sales. If the solution you're trying to create is not tailored to the users, if you don't even know the users you're trying to create that solution for, if you don't know the problems they have, if you don't know the challenges they have, you will not be able to solve the problems of your customers in the way that they would be willing to give you their money, because business is all about making profits, and to make profits, people have to be willing to pay for your services or your products. So how do we make sure that users are willing to pay for services and products? We need to know who those users are. Who are the people that are out there that have problems that can our solution can solve. So, as a matter of fact, how design thinking works is that You come into the design thinking process on a clean slate. You have a particular, perhaps a flinge of an idea of what you just have, a mere direction of what solution you want to create, but nothing more, no biases. You keep your bias aside, you keep what you think you know about the users aside, what you think the problems are facing are, you keep it towards aside. And you come with a clean heart, clean mind, and open heart, literally, so that you can easily absorb information you'll be getting from users and be able to interpret them in a clear and consistent manner so that we can produce results that are tailored to users' need. So this is that the processes in design. Sorry, this image is not exactly clear. We'll see more of this as we go on in the slides. So we have the empathize, we have define, we have ideate, we have prototype, and we have testing. We start the design. It's a linear process, right? But at some point, the the process goes back on itself. So you empathize and you define the problem. And if at the point of definition there is need for more clarity on what the problems are, you go back again to the users and empathize with them and discover more problems that they more dig deeper into the users and get more information to define the problem. Because at the stage of definition of define is where you identify the problem you're trying to solve and the problems users are actually having and how you want to solve it. And ideation is where you come up with ideas. We'll explore each of this process in a bit. Just want to give you an overview. The idea stage would we explore the ideas that we've gathered based on the problems, on the definitions that we've written. So you've written down a problem statement. There's something called a problem statement. Basically, you highlight the users, the problems they have, and how where do they have that problem? How is the problem like, and how are they solving the problem as it is for them right now? Is the problem costing them money? Is the problem really, if it's really important to them, then they will most likely have a solution already that they are implementing. So when you consider all this, you now start considering the possible solutions, then you now start doing what they call prototyping. And at the end of the day, you test. So when you test the solution, you you test it with users, of course, the people that are going to eventually use that solution. And when you test it with them, they give it to you drawing board, then you ideate again, go back. In fact, depending on the kind of feedback you get, you can end up starting from the beginning to empathize, then you define and follow the process down back to testing. Or you just go back when you collect feedback, you adjust your prototype based on the feedback you get, and you go back again and test. You keep doing that till you get an optimal solution. It can never be perfect. You can never get a solution that is perfect that would serve everybody. But what you want is a solution is that has a sweet spot between multiple variants. We'll talk about the variants later. So these are the design thinking process, and also, so there are a lot of critics why about the design thinking process, but it has been the most efficient in solving problems that is being used. It's a very popular methodology and process in thinking or solving problems. And we'll have more examples today. So just stick long enough and you will have a good grasp of what design thinking is about. Why is design thinking important? So design thinking is, just like I mentioned earlier, is built to solve problems of users because users are the people that are going to benefit, are going to be using the solution that we provide. Alternative to this would normally be a situation where the designers or whoever is trying to create the innovator, whoever is trying to come up with that solution will try to use their inclination, their own personal experience. We can never get the full story of a problem from our perspective. At that point we would need to there's there's a thing saying that you can never really know the truth. You would always see the truth from your own perspective. And that is very true in design, especially design thinking. You can never see the truth, know the entire truth. Even if you have experienced that problem you're trying to solve, there would always be that bias you would have towards the kind of solution you want to create. That is a point where you have to go out there and empathize and know what how other people are facing that problem. They are solving it. And the value of this is that when you create solutions that are that users get easily get can understand, of course, the intuitive and all that. And you get solutions that users hooked to your solution, hooked to your product, hooked to your platform, hooked to whatever method or whatever shape your solution take. If it is a website you built and you've empathized and you've defined and you've gone through the stages, prototype and you've tested and you've gone through all the different iterations to create that solution. Yourself in a situation where your solution is user focused, and when people can easily go through your platform and solve their problem, they will reward you. They will reward that solution by either giving that solution more time or more of their money, of course. We see example of this in, for example, social media platforms, WhatsApp, Facebook, and many others. Those are platforms built with users in mind. They were built in such a way to ensure that you have the best experience when using those platforms. So, hello, there's this background noise. I don't know where it's coming from. If you know if it's from you, please. Everyone should mute themselves. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so design and creating example will be social media platforms. Literally, designers are paid to ensure that users stay as long as possible on the platform. It's not as if they are trying to build. Of course, we have situations where these big companies are constantly building better solutions, better products, new products. But in most cases, people are paid to ensure that users spend more time on the platform. And how do they make users spend more time on the platform? They try to understand the user as much as possible. Data driven design is another aspect of design thinking where we collect data from users. If it's an already existing platform, you use data analytics. If it's a big company, you would have a specialized unit or particular department or team dedicated to the data science aspect of the organization. You collect data from the users. You empathize with them through that data. You understand how they behave, their behavior, their attitude. Of course, there are limitations to different methods you can use to collect data. So it's also advisable to use multiple methods in collecting data. So collecting data could come in form of course, let's like I said, um, using collecting data from the analytics, from the tools, from platforms that already exist. If it's an already existing solution that you're trying to improve on, could come in the form of actually going out there to meet users. That's the most effective and efficient way to get to empathize with users. For example, there's we are most of us here are Nigerians, even if not everyone here. So I'm going to use an example of Lagos, for example. You want to solve a problem of traffic, except the high traffic we have in Lagos State. You cannot do that by sitting down in your house. You cannot do that by okay, because I have experienced the traffic and I understand how the traffic works and I could come up with a solution. You have to go out there and talk to people. Talk to the people that are on the road that commute that road. You talk to the drivers, you talk to the people who go pass through that road to work, you talk to people who live along the path of those highly congested road and get their perspective. When you get the perspective of those multiple people, it helps you to have this combined perspective. So by the time you join the perspective of the different users that will eventually use your solution, you have a full picture of what the problem actually is. That's what happens at the empathize. We'll still go further to explain this. Now, the beauty of this is that when you now create solutions, you create solutions that are effective. Effective in the sense that it is you design product that when users interact with it to be like I never even knew I had this problem, or it to be like, wow, I never knew that I could actually solve this problem this well. So that is the beauty because at that point you understand user even more than they understand themselves, right? And you create solutions for them that are beautiful and of course exciting, just like I made mention of social media platforms. we end up seeing ourselves spending longer hours on this platform because they've studied us as users. They understand our needs. They understand our psychology, how we think, how we work, how we behave. They know what makes us tick. They understand us even better than we understand ourselves. Trust me, they do. And based on that information, they create solutions that we just can't let our eyes off. We are addicted to it, right? Social media platforms, TikTok, name it. That is design thinking, and that's the power of design thinking. From the financial aspect, we'll talk more about that, the business side of design thinking, and why the business value rather of design thinking. So, where did design thinking come from? We've had design thinking for years. Actually, the term was coined in the early 1960s, but it only got popular in the early 2000s by a company, an agency actually, a design agency called IDEO. IDEO is one of the largest and most popular design agencies in the world. They've built solutions for companies around the world, and they were the ones that fully put design thinking into action and demonstrated the power of design thinking in solving problems. You could find it on YouTube to see this particular video. It's one of I have watched this several times, and it's always new because it's amazing how you come from a point where you just barely have an idea of what you want to do to a point where you are creating multiple prototypes, you are testing it, you are seeing which one performs best, and you are picking the best to be the final one that you would eventually build. So in this video, it was a redesign of shopping carts. They're trying to redesign the shopping carts. The existing carts were hard to use, and they were trying to figure out if there was could be a better way to better kind of shopping cart that would be effective for users. You can see it had a very interesting view, especially for its time. This video was posted in 2009, and it has done really well. And yes, that was where design thinking got started. The popularity came from, and it has become an industry buzzword. And you would find that if you put search design thinking on YouTube currently right now, you would see a whole lot of content, resources, kits. In fact, we have something called um, design sprint that is also tailored towards design thinking. It's a 5-day process where you move from the definition to the ideation, everything down to testing. I think you test at the 5th day of the solution that you want to bring and collect feedback and all. It's called a design sprint. Um, that's the story of design thinking. Let's start with the process. There are about 5 of them, 5 steps to design thinking. We have empathy. We have to empathize with users, like I said. So this is a point where okay, you have an idea of a particular solution, or maybe you're working for an organization, or maybe it's a personal project. You want to solve a problem in a particular industry or a problem that you are facing personally. And it's always advisable that when it comes to solving problems, you solve problems that you've experienced before, not abstract problems that you you'd better appreciate a solution. You will better appreciate a problem when you've actually experienced it, when you've experienced the difficulty and the challenges. Why most of the businesses that do well in the world, most of the companies that do well in the world, they are built by people who have those people literally solve the problem that they have, right? But also in doing so, they also had to aggregate the problems and the perspective of others who have the similar problems to the problem that they have, bring them together and create a much more robust and inclusive solution. So here, when you empathize with users, there are different methods. This is the research stage actually of design. So you go out there depending on the methods and the kind of solution you are bringing. Sometimes you could send out a survey form. You could have interviews, and it's the most popular ones are survey forms and interviews, especially when you are working with a remote team or your audience, the people that are using your products, are online. Just you survey forms and interviews have been the most effective and popular method of collecting data. So of course, what you want to ask is why. What challenges are you having? There's a technique called the five whys, where you ask a series of why questions to understand the problems that they are facing. I'm going to send in more resources concerning this. I know we're supposed to have we're working on a kind of compilation of resources for everyone from all the classes we've had and ones we'll have in the future. We'll just compile everything and share it with the class so that you can easily flow and do your own research. You have to ensure that all we are teaching you here is not everything. This is not the whole picture. And it's important to do your personal study. Use Google, use YouTube, use whatever form, or even podcast. Download Google Podcast if you do not have any, and read, search, ask Google questions, and follow that rabbit hole and see where it leads you. And when you're researching, make sure you are taking notes. Don't watch YouTube video like a random video that you watch for entertainment. See it as you are studying. You're literally in school. And when you are in school, you're not in school for entertainment. You're in school for business. You're in school for learning. You take down notes and you see, look for ways you can experiment and practice what you've learned. We'll get back to it. When you there are different forms of research, right? We have attitude. Now we have yes, I would talk more about that in the UX aspect of the course of the training. We would go further to explore the different types of research and how to collect data. So it's mostly if your audience are not online, if you are designing for people in the rural area, that means you cannot stay in your house. You have to go to the streets. You have to meet people. I think I concluded the project last year that demanded I did some sort of field work where I had to literally go to people in their shops and to really know what the problems that they face are. And it was an interesting experience because what I thought mattered to them turned out to be something different. And it was a very interesting learning curve and it helped shape the solution I was trying to build. So always meet users, always interact with users. Users are the people that are going to use your solution. So involve them at the beginning of the process so that you will not create solutions that nobody wants to use. Because if you do that, you've just wasted efforts, you've wasted resources, you've wasted your own time, and it will leave you with a bad experience that might rub off on your ability to create solutions and you work on other projects in the future. So next we have define. So at this point, you've collected a lot of data, both the normal data from surveys, the ones you collect from other methods, and you've done all that. Give me a sec, please. Sorry about this. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So define. Define. This is where we try to. We've collected a lot of data. We've, so you could use different methods. If you are working with a team, fine. If you're working alone, it's also fine. You're working alone, then you would have to make sure you are taking notes. If it's an interview, you build your viral and paper. Methods of doing interviews to ensure that you're getting the most out of users. You don't have to, you don't, when you interview people, you have to ensure that of course, they have to be comfortable because otherwise you will not get the kind of information you want to get. You have to make them understand what you are, the questions you're asking them, what are you asking them for, how will it benefit them. People are more willing to talk to you when they know that what you want from them is going to be beneficial to them. It's going to help them make more money or to help their life better. You have to make them understand how it will benefit them, make them comfortable. Then you ask those questions, collect that information, then you synthesize them. You write them down. Use depending on the method you use. Personally, I do use sticky notes. Or basically, you summarize the response you get into short sentences. you put them together in cards, put them in a place that you can easily see. You could use tools, online tools to do that. Figma has something called FigJam. It's a place where you can do brainstorming, or you can use other tools. We have Muralist, we have Miro, we have Draw.io, we have a whole lot of other tools that you can use to brainstorm. Brainstorming actually takes place in the third stage, but at this point, you need somewhere to collate your information you are collecting. You need somewhere um, to put that information together and start identifying, okay, what are these people's problem? What are they actually facing? This person said this person said that, this person said this also. They are saying different things. What is the cross? What does this all mean? How will this affect? Is this information that this user giving me important? Is it something that I should consider in my solution? And you also have to ensure that your users are not to give you solutions. They are the ones to give you the problem they are having. You are the expert. You are the one to create solutions. So, as much as possible, please, if you're not hearing me, I want you to drop it in the chat box. If you can hear me, also do the same. As much as possible, I want to ensure that everyone in class can hear me so that we would all flow along. We would also have the video sent across as well as the slides. The slides will be much more robust than this, so that we can fully have information to the information you sent to Sam. And yes, at this point you collect the information from users. You you write them down. You write down those problems they are having. Then you try to figure out. There's something called a statement, a problem statement. At the defined stage, you have to define the problem. Define what problems users are actually facing. How are they? Um, can you summarize the entire problem they are facing in one sentence? Can you explain the problem they are facing? Do you understand the problem they are facing? So that is what you do at this phase. You try to identify the problem, define it, and if you do not understand it at this point, based on the information you've gathered, you go back again to gather more information to validate the problem that you've written down with the users. Is this actually the problem you are facing?
Sorry, guys, please let's calm down. I'm seeing your messages. Please let's just be calm. So apparently it's from his own end. So he's going to work on that shortly. Thank you. Please, guys, if you can hear me, please just indicate. Yeah, I'm seeing your messages. Please just calm down. Please, everybody, just calm down. Apparently, it's a network issue, so he's going to work on it. Please just stay on the call and be patient. Please, thank you very much.
Okay, hello. Uh, Samuel just reached out to me. I believe you can hear me, right? Ella, Moses, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, yeah. So someone just reached out to me that is currently swapping his network to some other provider. I think um, I think it's an MTN thing. So please, let's be patient. I can see your messages. Let's be patient. Just let's give him like 2 3 minutes, and I'm sure he should be back. Okay. Okay. So Samuel, I see you're back on the call. Samuel, can you hear me? Yeah. So Samuel, I'm very sure others cannot hear you as well. I don't think anyone can hear you because I can't hear you on Discord. Have you been able to swap your network? And let's try to make it fast, please, because a lot of people are waiting on the call.
Hello, everyone. Marvelous, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I can hear you. I can hear you. I'm also
Can you
sure.
hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Moses, can you hear him?
Yeah, can you?
Perhaps
I
it's
can hear
from
you
my
now.
end.
You can carry on.
Okay, okay, all right. So I wanted to know, please, can somebody drop where we stopped so that I would not be missing anything? Okay, we stopped at define. Oh, define. Okay, no problem. Let's get back to define.
You have to share your screen again, okay?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So define. So this is a point where you get to define the problems that users are facing. So you get from all the information you gather that empathize, you want to turn them and synthesize those problems into solution, you want to synthesize those problems, right? You want to come up with the actual problems that people are facing that you want to solve. So if you've done your research, you've collected information, I personally use sticky notes to write down those ideas, each of the summary of the problems that each user mentioned. You sum it up into a sentence, keep all these problems that they said that they have. You keep them in different cards, and if it's a team, you make everyone to decide on which of this. Okay, you just keep those problems, and you try to understand how to synthesize the problem into a single problem that touches on all the other problems that were mentioned, so that we ensure that the solution that you're providing is touching on as many fronts as possible. Next, we have ideate. Ideate. This is the phase where you've gathered a lot of information. You've decided on the problem statement. There's a concept called problem statement that you do at the define stage. So at the define stage, you define the problem that you want to solve, and you carry the problem. You take the solution. You take the problem into the ideate stage. The ideate stage, you want to come up with as many ideas as possible. You write down, you take your pen and whatever tool you're using, you write down as many solutions as you think would solve that particular problem. And you shouldn't limit yourself to any idea, no matter how bad it might seem. Because most times those bad ideas can turn out to be good ideas that you could invert them into good ideas. And there's a model of thinking where called the law of inversion, where you consider the worst things you could do and invert them into the good into the and would end up becoming the ideal solution. For example, what would you do to fail in an exam? Right? So you would probably not go to class. You would not take attendance seriously. You will not do your assignments. You will not attend exams. And if you don't do any of those things, you are sure of failing the exams. When you invert those things that you would do to fail, you would attend lectures. You would do your assignments. You would take your exams seriously. You prepare for your exams. You read for your exams. When you invert those things you will do to fail, you end up with ideal solutions, right? The same way you should, if it's a team setting, you encourage people to bring out their ideas, even if they sound bad or they are not actually workable. Sometimes they form the basis for the good solution or the optimal solution. Because at this stage, when you're coming up with ideas, you have to consider the constraints. What are the constraints or the things that would hinder the solution from coming to fruition? Could be technical constraints. Can the engineering team create this kind of solution? Is it something that we can do within this time frame? Because you don't want to end up building a solution for years and you never finish that solution. Can you build the solution within the time frame? Is the budget, is the financial, the financial budget, the constraint, financial constraint. Is this something that is within this solution? Can we use the money we have to solve this problem? That's what it literally means. You consider all this when filtering ideas, and this idea, is it going to touch all the users? Does it fit into the problems of all the users, or as many users as possible, as many problems as possible that were mentioned by the user? You collect all this information and you pick the best ideas. At the end of this session, at the end of this stage, you want to select at least three ideas that you would move over to the next phase with. So if it's a team, you want the team to vote. If you are the leader of the team, you are the team lead, you want the team to vote on the top three ideas that we should move to the next phase of prototyping with. Then, because at that stage, you cannot take all the solutions that the team has or you've come up with, can't go over to test those things. It will be ineffective and to waste time. You pick the top three ideas and you take it to the next phase. The next phase is called prototyping. So it will be very unwise and financially reckless, actually. And this has been the way solutions have been built for a long time, where you have an idea, perhaps you've done some research, and you just build the solution and push it out there to the world. And if people don't like it, money is wasted, time is wasted, you start again, go back to this drawing book, and you start coming up with a new idea or a new solution. This is very expensive and it wastes time, resources, and it's far from effective or efficient. So prototyping solves this problem where you can where you get to where you get to actually build the very essence of the idea. You don't want to build a full-fledged application. You want to just build. You could use tools. There are prototyping tools where you use to bring out just the very basic feature. It could be a physical prototype where you just draw out the UI and show users how it will work and let users give you feedback, because all you want is to get feedback. So at this point, you want to spend the least time possible building out the basic essential features of the app or the platform, wherever it is, whether it is web, whether it is mobile, whether it is even a physical solution you're trying to bring. We want you to be able to, we want to arm you with the ability to solve problems in design, as a designer, even in your own personal life and in business, because design thinking has application in every space of every area of life and in every industry. You can apply it whenever you are looking for innovative solutions. Design thinking is very, very powerful and very useful in coming up with ideas that would inspire and create change. Remember what I said earlier in our first class, that designers are change makers. We are the ones who inspire solutions. And even in the development, product development process, you see design at the forefront of that process. We would be the one to do the research, we'll be the one to design the idea before it moves to the development, the engineering team that would end up building it. Then we can now think of launching it. Okay, so you keep your eyes on, you ensure that you're always doing that. So that's it about prototyping. You want to design just the essence, the basic features. So you could use Figma actually. Figma will allow you to prototype. For example, you built a mobile app, or you don't need to build everything, just build the basic features, spend a day or two, come up with something, you prototype it, and you give it to users, and that would ask users questions. Okay, can you find so and so place? Can you create an account? For example, you watch users create an account. Then you tell them to. You can also tell them to say out to vocalize their pain point. If they are having any issue, if they, okay, for example, they are trying to create an account. Like, okay, now I'm trying to create my account. I'm looking for the login button, the create account button. Okay, I found it, and I'm going to click now. Okay, it's clickable, and I'm going to write my username, my email rather. I'm going to put in my password. Oh, it is asking me to make my password strong. Oh, okay, that means this password is not strong. You let them say out to vocalize the process that they follow when in the other prototyping stage. So it helps you to ensure that if there's um, any problem, if at any point they are confused or they find it difficult to move from one point to another, you know that okay, there's a problem here that you need to consider. So that is what you do at the prototyping level. You want to build out the very fledgling, the smallest detail, less time consuming feature of the product. So testing is very important because when you prototype, you have to test it. So you are testing it for key performance indicators. You want to write down the things that you want to discover from the test. This is the last stage of the process. You want to write down the things that you are okay. Sorry about that. So you want to write down the you want to write down the feedback that users are giving you to reiterate because at this point the information you get here will most likely not be that the solution is okay. When users give you feedback at this point, it will most likely be that okay, I couldn't quite figure out how this part work. I couldn't create my account or I couldn't find the checkout box. Like I couldn't I couldn't finish the process of buying the product. I couldn't even find the product I was looking for. It was very confusing. I didn't even know how to search the platform. So you collect they would users to give you this information, then you take it from them and use it to you go back again. Depending on on the kind of feedback you get, it will determine how far back you go back in the process. So if you get feedback if the feedback just require you to make changes to the prototype, you go back, make changes to the prototype and test again. Sometimes it might require you to change the entire shape of the solution entirely. So you go back, you change the solution you are trying to create and prototype, then test. Or it could require you to go back and start empathizing. Perhaps you guys, the entire team got it wrong. And what you thought would be the solution was just bullshit and nobody could use it. So you got to go back, start from the beginning, empathize, define, and you follow all the way down to test. When you test after multiple testing and making iterations, you discover that okay, at this point we've gotten a reasonably optimal solution. So what you do at this point is you move over to implementing it. So implementing it here is you get to build out the actual solution. So if it's design, this is the point you start churning UIs, you start creating the UI designs. You start, of course, you still have to ensure that you are cognizant of UX to ensure that the platform maintains usability and of that it is usable, of course. So you consider the UX, you consider the UI, you build out the actual designs, you move it to the development team. The development team will now be the ones to write the code for the solution. If it's a mobile app, the mobile developer would write the code for will code the mobile application. Then you then go back again because at this point you built the actual application. It will be different from the prototype you tested, right? Maybe the engineer you placed an icon at the top right corner, a particular point sizing. Maybe you wanted to maintain particular margin between the edge of the screen and the beginning of the content of the screen. And developers did not put the information the way you wanted it to be or the way you think it should be based on your research and based on your findings and the feedback you've gotten from users. You go back and test. So when the solution has been built, you get users again to test the already built solutions. You get feedback from them. If it's feedback that you can provide yourself to the engineering team, you make sure that you provide that feedback. The engineers will correct it, make changes. You keep mentioning making those little changes. Of course, you have to have time frame for all these things so that you ensure that you're not just you don't keep um, you don't keep making changes repeatedly and you never actually launch the project or the product, whatever you're building. Because the longer you take to launch, to put your product out there in the world, the higher the chance that you would never actually put that project out there in the world. So you want to ensure that as fast as possible, you collect this feedback, you implement, then you launch. You launch your product and you start collecting real world feedback. Then when building the application, the solution, if it's a digital solution, of course that's what we're covering here, UI UX, digital design. You have to ensure that in the solution in the platform you provide allows users to give you feedback. It could be a small indicator where they get to pick 5 stars between if their experience is enjoyable or not. Or it could be if when they finish putting that the rating, after they finish rating their experience, they can drop a message for you telling you, okay, I had issues with this, I had issues with that, improve this part of the experience. At that point, you get to collect that information. You make sure that you put in points in the product. A product is a solution, a full-fledged solution that solves a problem, right? Of course, a bottle of Coke is a product. So also is WhatsApp. WhatsApp, the entire application called WhatsApp is a product. It's an end-to-end solution that solves problems, right? So you build out that product and it's out there in the world. You put in measures to collect data, both the ones you collect under the hood and the ones you actually ask users for feedback from. Then I also wanted to mention that Google Google Play Store is a very, very powerful place to collect data. If, for example, you are designing an application for mobile and you want to know the pain points of people, and it is not an idea that does not have any replica out there, and no matter how novel your solution might be, there will be related solutions that you could learn from. So going to Google Play Store is a very it can provide the foundation for your research. You go down to the comment section, you see how people complain about the simplest of things that or the kind of problems that they faced using the platform. Maybe you are trying to create an Uber-like platform. You go to Uber, check the comments. What are people saying about Uber? What challenges are people facing using Uber? How are they solving the problems that they are facing? What challenges are they? You just ask them all these questions. Then you collect feedback from you get those information, write it down. If as much as possible, go through all the comments in that particular point, in that particular in multiple applications. You can go through 4 5 applications similar to the solution you want to bring, take in the feedback, the complaints, go through, make sure you are checking the worst reviews and you collect all this information and let it guide your decision so that the mistakes that the mobile application, other mobile applications are making, yours do not make that mistake, and you're building a better solution. And when people see that, oh, this particular platform does not have the problem that this one has, or is better, it solves all my problem I've been facing with this one I've been using since, they would easily want to switch over to the solution that you've built. So there are other forms of thinking, there are other thinking models, especially within the product development cycle. We have the lean methodology, where it's a framework actually, where we think of how we organize human activities to deliver more benefits to society and value. So you can explore this. They are very easy to understand. They have their own process, they have their own story and their own history, and they play a very important role if you are trying to explore other forms of thinking. Because in as much as design thinking has all these benefits, it has its own limitations. And so also do agile and the lean methodology. So you might find yourself in a place where the organization uses lean approach to building their solutions. You have to understand what it means and know you can use that in your design process, as well as if the team is using an agile approach. So we have come to the end of the class, and thank you very much for coming. Sorry about the network, the break today. I would ensure that that doesn't happen in our next class. Thank you all for listening. I'll be going to the chats to check for questions. Okay. If you have any questions, you can ask. I would answer. Please. Okay. Do you have any questions? Unity design, I did though. Unity is how everything in the prince in your design functions together. Is the harmony between all the elements in your design. So there must be harmony. Harmony could be depending on how you see it. So harmony here is that the colors, the text, everything must communicate the same feeling. It must move in the same direction. You can't have color that is vibrant and bold, and you now have a text that is dull and not visible, and images that are hard to see and hard to read. So you have to make sure that there's that balance. There need to be harmony in your design. So that's what Unity is trying to say. Everything in your design must be united. But don't have you shouldn't have one going one side to one direction, the other one going to the other direction. I'm waiting. Oh, ask your questions. Do you understand what design thinking is? Because with this foundation, we'll be going into the main meat of the event, which is of the program rather, bootcamp, which is the UI. Then we'll move over to UX, and UX will build house in UX because that's the most important part of design. You will get that. The moderators would share the link to the YouTube so that you can check search Top Universe on YouTube. You would get that. Well, we'll be focusing on design thinking during the class, but you can explore that. So we'll talk more about them in subsequent class, but it's not really something I want us to pay much attention to, but just know that they exist and they are used. What's the difference between users and, they're actually the same thing, but okay, so depending, right, on the context. Let me put it that way. Let's take, for example, you built Jumia. We all know Jumia. Jumia is an e-commerce platform in Nigeria, a popular e-commerce platform. You built Jumia. Your users are the people that are using the platform, right? When they visit jumia.com, they are using the platform. Your users are also people that are using the platform from the back. From the back, I mean, there's something called admin, an admin office, basically where people that are managing the application interact with the application form are also users, but they're not exactly end users because they are not the ones the solution was built for. They are the ones that are helping facilitate the solution, the final solution. So you can see end users are people that the solution is built for. Then any other kind of users can be classified as just users, right? But generally, end users is the same thing. Okay, so persona at the empathize stage is where you get to collect information that you would be filling into your persona. So when you meet users, you met 5, 10 users. They told you possible users because they will not might not be people that are facing the problems that you want to be designed for. You meet them. Maybe one's name is Mama Emeka. You write it down, Mama Emeka. Mama Emeka tells you all the problems he's having, especially in relation to the solution you're trying to create. You write it down. And all these things that she's telling you will form the profile that you would create for your persona. So when you're creating your persona, you say you put um, name Mama Emeka, location of Mama Emeka. Maybe Mama Emeka stays in Enugu, and Mama Emeka is a retailer. She sells. She has a kiosk. She believes you write down when you are asking those questions. You ask questions that would allow you to understand how a mama. How, for example, in this case, Mama Emeka thinks. What does she think about? What does she think about customers? We want to ask questions to understand her mindset. Then you write, okay, Mama Emeka thinks this, thinks that, thinks this, how she thinks. When Mama Emeka um, opens her shop 5 times a week, you write it down. All these things form the profile, and that profile is what you will refer to as persona that would guide you when creating the actual solution. So it's you get information for personas in your design thinking process, and of course, design thinking covers research. So yeah, waiting. Oh, I didn't really get a lot from the class. So sorry about that. I'm sorry about that if you missed the class. So design thinking is a process. It's a process we use to solve problem. We use it to solve problem in UI UX. We use it to solve problem in design. So when you are solving problem, when you are talking about UI UX, prototyping phase in UI UX, of course, design. UI UX is how we solve problem. You create the user. UI stands for user interface. UX stands for user experience. When you are creating design thinking process, at the end of all your testing and you start building the actual application, you will build the UI. The UI will contain the UX. UX is not tangible. UI is what is tangible. UX is how the platform, how the accessibility, how the experience you get from using the platform. So different and they are connected. We send the link to the slides. You get them. Can The link to the class on YouTube has been sent to the group. And okay. If we do not have any other questions, we'll call it a day here. All questions will be answered in the group. Thank you very much for coming.